Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge. We could call it the preview for Nvidia earnings because that's all everybody's talking about today, folks. That and Cracker Barrel. And Pete and I'll have the 411 on both on today's Rebel's Edge. Bang! Bang!
He's too caught up in the Cracker Barrel still.
I'm telling you, there has never been a president that has a better time than this president. Because even when people are just hating on him, the guy's just like dancing and everything. And when they took the Cracker Barrel, Pete, by the way, folks, Cracker Barrel, and I Googled this and I used some AI as well. They spent $700 million on the rebrand. And then yesterday, just after the bell, nope, we're going back to the old logo. Tear it up. Stock goes up 7%. And Trump's out there saying, I told them they should do this. Winning, I guess.
You gotta love it.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, folks, you want more craziness? We got more craziness.
You got it.
And we'll share it with you today. And make sure, by the way, that if you want our book, look, Pete's got a stack of them on the shelf behind him. It's not an option, as well as Follow the Smart Money. But you can still get It's Not an Option. The other ones are collector's item, Pete.
Yep.
Even though we sold 100,000 of those. It's not an option. You just go to the website, you'll get one of those. All right. Let's talk about macro, Pete. Macro, I'm going to say durable goods orders for July, smaller than expected decline. So in other words, people were still buying. They weren't buying as much, which the decline implies, but they were expecting a much bigger decline. And instead, the consumer was somehow able to still buy durable goods, which are, of course, goods that are not just like paper towels and toilet paper where you buy it and it's gone. These are like washers, dryers, cars, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, consumer confidence also fell less than anticipated, Pete. What do you got for unusual on the macro side?
Well, it sounds like a lot of bears were out there trying to get this market to get pushed to the downside, and we've had an unbelievable run to the upside with a lot of record highs. It's just been absolutely incredible. I'll just say this. I think even though I realize it's just a single stock, but when you look at Nvidia and it's basically got 12% of the S&P, John, I think this is something that's pretty macro. What they say, how they say it, what the tone is right now that we're going to hear from the earnings tonight, I think will be something that will affect everything from AI to, you name it, all these different semiconductors and those that are putting things together. All of that, I think that's what the read-through is from Nvidia. So I'd say that's my macro.
All right. Well, I'll just add to it, Pete, that we have unusual activity aplenty in Nvidia. So we can tell you more about that later today, because we might have to do a little quick special live update, Pete, right before the day ends as far as Nvidia, because there's definitely some pretty large speculation going on. And we'll tell you which way they're speculating, bullish or bearish. So now let's dive into futures, Pete. And I'm going to say the FXI, which happens to be the large cap ETF for China, it's down about 3% today. And why is that? Well, because with all the stuff Trump's doing with everybody else, including India, people are getting worried in China that maybe China's next. So I'm going to say FXI futures, that's my unusual future today, Pete.
The only thing you missed out on, John, is it's actually pronounced China. So anyway, like the president's. All right. A tight range for the VIX? Absolutely. We are sitting right there, John, 14s, 15s. That's where we are. So enough about that for the moment anyway. I'm going to say also nat gas. Now, nat gas is now sitting at the lowest level since November of 2024. It's actually up a little bit today. So yesterday was even a little bit worse. But Interesting to see where that is. We've been talking about a lot with what's going on with crude oil and so forth, but nat gas, keep an eye on this one as well. Is there any sort of lift there at all, or is it going to go even a little bit lower? It's gotten hammered pretty good. We'll keep an eye on this one.
All right. Well, now let's just let everybody know once again that even though you cannot get an in-person pass to our boot camp in Miami, you can get a virtual pass, folks. And let me tell you about this. You not only get that virtual pass, which means you get to see everything that goes on stage for those 2 days, September 19th and 20th, but you also get $200 worth of any of our subscription products as a gift from us to you. So if you're somebody that absolutely knows that you need a little maybe ratcheting up in your options expertise, this is a great thing to attend. And you're going to get $200 off of any of our subscription or education products, which means anything on the Market Rebellion site. $200 off and that virtual pass. Just scan the QR code, folks, and you could be joining us virtually September 19th and 20th. Cool. All right, Pete, how about a little MongoDB?
Mongo.
Sounds like this is an Alex Karras favorite stock because famously Alex Karras, the defensive tackle for the Lions back in the day, God rest his soul, Pete, famously made that bet when Dempsey kicked that long field goal, and he said, if this guy hits that, I'll walk all the way home. But that was Alex Karras, who played Mongo in Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles.
So I'm getting distracted, Pete, by all these weird references. But nonetheless, MongoDB, they blew out upside on the revenue side, upside on the profit side, and they guided higher. It's tough to have a better quarter than they had, Pete.
They hit it out of the park. I've not seen one like it in quite a long time. We've been talking about all these big beats, John, all through this quarter has been absolutely the opposite of what so many people were predicting. But the reality is that earnings have been much, much better than expected. And this is just a great example of that. And you just talked about the revenue was extremely strong. Year over year revenue, by the way, it's only up 23.7%, John. That's not so terrible either. When you raise your guidance for earnings and you raise your guidance for revenues and you've got a double beat there, as well as the cash to debt sitting there at about, $2.4 billion, free cash flow of about $420 million. I would say that there's not much that these guys have missed. The only thing that I would just throw out there as a negative, if there is such a thing as a negative here, is it a little stretched? If they can keep growing the way they are, then the answer would be no. But you look at that price to earnings that they've got right now, it's a little bit on that high end. So that's just something, and I don't mean that to sound negative, and I'm not looking for anything negative, but I just looked at where the PE is right now, and it's pretty substantially high. So just something to keep in mind.
Yes, and you should keep that in mind because the PE is something that eventually they can either grow into it, Pete, or they can't. And if they can't, that quarter is going to be ugly. All right, Smuckers, Pete, SJM. This one plays right into one that you and I covered on Monday because we were talking, I think, about the acquisition of Pete's, and not Pete Najarian, of course, but Pete's over in Europe. And the fact that there's going to be a lot more competition when Keurig Dr. Pepper owns Pete's as well as Keurig and so forth. So I'm thinking maybe it ain't over for these guys with the bad news, Pete, because yes, Smuckers, even though most of you know them as a jam company or a jelly company, they also own a lot of frozen foods. They also own a lot of coffee and pet foods. So competition's coming after them. And the stock's down about 5% year to date, Pete. I don't think the bottom's in yet.
I don't think so either, John. I would tend to agree with you. I know that they had some issues that they had actually put up there. The retail from the pet food side of things, that was down about 8%. Actually, believe it or not, coffee sales were up 15%. So you get a little positive with a little bit of negative. The sales were down about 1% in terms of what this report was showing us. They did raise their sales outlook. So their concern over this whole issue with Pete's and so forth doesn't seem to be affecting them as much. I would just say this. This is one where I look at the PE. We were just talking about that a moment ago. It's a 12. So is it at a spot that's pretty safe? I would say that it is. Stock was, last I looked, down about 4%, something like that. Can they navigate through this? Well, the good news is they don't just rely on the coffee side of things. If that was the case, that might end up being something that could bite them. But the fact that the pet food was down, what do they got to do to get that back up? And I think if they can answer that question and get that in the right spot, I think then maybe there could be some momentum. But this would be one that I'd be a little bit cautious to say, well, it's down 4%. Now's the time to buy. I don't think that's the case. I think you got some time.
All right. Well, how about this one, Pete? Kohl's. When you look at the April low for Kohl's, it's almost tripled from those April lows. It's a department store, of course. Bottom line beat despite a contraction in same-store sales. This one was up a little over 20%. It's holding on to 18% gain at mid-session. And their interim CEO said, we managed the business with great discipline. And I'm going to give them credit for that, Pete. They certainly did. This is not exactly the same as the big back-to-school section of shoppers coming in, because this one ended. They closed the books on this one a month ago. And so I'm saying they could still have another good quarter upcoming.
And this has been one of those, John, where we've had unusual in here. And you just look at it and go, what's Kohl's going to possibly do? How could they do, anything solid? Well, just take a look at some of these numbers right there and where that stock is today after this 20% run. I mean, this is pretty at 22% right there. It's pretty amazing, John, how well they did. And this is a stock that I actually know very, very well, along with being into the store as the boots on the ground that I do, where one of the things that they did over the last quarter or so is they talked about not trying to have as much, reducing the inventory of what they've got and lowering expenses and that type of thing. But I will say you this, the profits, that's the part that really stood out for me. The gross margin, that slid up in a big way, almost to 40%. So they've got that side of it. Despite the fact that their revenue was down, they were so much more efficient that's what made them better. If they can do a couple of quarters like this is a stock that could make a pretty decent rebound. Because you know what? My biggest complaint about these guys with my boots on the ground has been for years, and I'm going back early pandemic, when your boots on the ground, what's going on with everybody, and are they shopping, are they not, and they're wearing masks and everything else. I can tell you this, John, they had way too much inventory, way too much. You couldn't even take a hanger out of the deal because they're all jammed in together. But they've fixed a lot of things that were not working for them, and kudos to them, because this was a pretty nice quarter, all things considered, with the revenue going down and the margins going up. I like what they were able to do.
Well, and just like we showed you, folks, we had unusual activity in it, and the activity paid off big time. And what Pete and I focus on, folks, is not just the price that they're buying at. They bought it at 15, as you can see, September 15 calls, but they also tell you the expiration. They could have bought something else. Instead, they said, you know what? We want to own this one out to September. That's why I get kind of bullish, Pete, about back to school and perhaps an early look into holiday sales. Yeah. So I was pretty bulled up about this one, and now I believe they've justified that bullish outlook. All right, Goose, Canada Goose. And I was delighted, Pete, because I was thinking, man, I know I've talked a lot about Goose, and turns out on 3 at 3, we did talk about Canada Goose. We did it on the 11th of August. Mm-hmm. We said, hey, unusual activity in this one. We don't know why. And that's when I really love things, Pete, because when you get unusual activity, and if it's ahead of earnings, you kind of say, okay, speculation maybe that they're going to beat, or maybe somebody is more than just speculating, if you know what I mean, folks. But in this case, there was nothing on the calendar, Pete, for this one, except that apparently Bain wants to lighten up, and they said, hey, we own 60 some odd % of this, and we'd kind of like to say adios. And boom, the stock pops. The unusual activity paid off again.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only did it pay off, John, when you look at what they're doing, they want to get out of their position, right? Bain would like to get removed out of this thing, as you said, 60+% of the voting shares and all the rest of it that goes with it. They want a value of something close to 1.4 billion. Well, it looks like there's some folks out there that are kind of contemplating whether or not they want to do that, right? I mean, this is something that's in the works right now, but there is no final. There's nothing on paper yet, but it sure does look pretty interesting, John. And they talked about multiple different firms that might be the ones that might be wanting to step up. Maybe they bring it private, however they want to do it. But that certainly is something to give this thing a big lift. And somebody sniffed this out pretty good with those options, I would say.
Yep, I would too. And folks, they did it on another one too. We had 2 hits for unusual activity. The one that we reported on 3 at 3, which is, of course, when I give you guys that are subscribers a look into what we're seeing. And one just yesterday. There it is, Goose, the October 13 calls when the stock was just about 13. And there it is, blowing through 14 today. I think this is another indicator, folks, that if you're not paying attention to unusual activity, you need to, because if you go to marketrebellion.com/get started, you can join us and trade just like Pete and I do. And by the way, down in Florida, the 19th and 20th, virtual pass, because again, regular passes sold out. We told you, we warned you. Now you can still attend with a virtual pass, and you get that $200 credit off of any of our subscriptions, any of them. You get a $200 credit, whether it's a monthly, whether it's a semi-annual or annual. You get $200 off of any of the subscriptions, along with your attendance for that virtual pass. All right, let's take a look at a little some monsters in high school football, Pete. What do you say?
I'll tell you what.
Some.
There's high schools that don't look like high schools. Those guys don't look like high school football players. Look at 76. Honestly, look at that guy. That guy looks like he ought to be walking into the NFL for the Chicago Bears, John. Holy crap. Modern Day, is that right? Or who we got there?
The #1 ranked high school football team in the
country,
entire country, sending out a receiving core of not 1, not 2, but 3 top 60 players in the class of 2026.
Of the top
and when
60
you hear
players
this
in the country.
from the student section pregame, there's only one thing left to do. Modern Day traveled all the way from California to go up against one of Florida's finest, St. Thomas Aquinas. And it was the firepower of Modern Day being put on display in the first half. This 5-star Ohio State wide receiver commit Chris Henry
Modern Day,
Jr.
John, I think
this
Ohio State
touchdown
commit,
pass, and on the next possession, he showed off
the
his
ballers. I mean,
strong
look at the size of the
hands
guy.
as
Look how he
ripped the ball
adjusts.
away
Look
from
how he
the
gets the
DB
ball and
for the
uses his
score.
hands and the
Safe
whole
to say
thing. I
the
mean, all the
Buckeyes
things you're
got
supposed to know how to do, but
Aquinas
not a lot of high
was gonna get
schoolers know how to
embarrassed
do
on
that.
their home
And by the way, Modern Day,
turf.
John, I think
They inched back
I'm
into
trying to
this
think
one.
if
His
he
touchdown from
played
Mason
there or
Mallory
not,
cut
but
the lead to 10 in the fourth.
Palomalo,
And after he found
I'm
Julius
pretty
Jones
sure he did. I think
Kohl,
that's where
it
he
was all of a sudden down
he
to
started
just
his
3.
career in high
This
school
game was
too.
going to be won
So,
in the trenches.
look at
Modern Day
that
needed
big
a
son of
first
a gun.
I mean, look at the size of
SBA
these kids.
needed a stop to have a chance, and it ended up being
But
that
St.
West
Thomas
Coast
Aquinas,
strength to shut the door
unbelievable.
on
I mean,
They're
STA's
they
great.
came roaring back.
Yeah. They came all the way back. I think they still lost though, right? But they gave it a really good fight, and that's impressive, John. These kids in high school are at a different level than they are than we were. That's for sure, coming out of high school. And we, back, in the early '80s, late '70s, early '80s, how many places even had a gym in their high school? They kind of did. They had a thing here and a thing there, but it wasn't anything like what these guys got. I mean, it wasn't Buford, that's for sure. All right, John. Let's stick with that, but let's stick now to the next level of what that was, which is all those players that are going to Ohio State and Michigan and Minnesota and California and Stanford and everywhere else. I got one for you. Who is some of the the dark horses that are out there for college football to get into the playoff? And I think this one's kind of fun. And here's my 2 SEC schools, Oklahoma and Missouri. And you're going to look at me and go, what the hell are you talking about, Missouri? they're not going anywhere. First of all, their schedule in the SEC is very favorable to them. And secondly, Brady Cook, the quarterback who was outstanding last year in the SEC for Missouri, is back for this year. So I think those guys are a real possibility, along with Oklahoma. Oklahoma lost a lot of people. They can reload pretty good. Plus, they ended up getting the quarterback from Washington State to come there, Jon Mateer. He's supposedly everything that everybody built up about him. They all absolutely love him. My buddies down in Oklahoma tell me how good these guys look. So those two, we talked about Illinois the other day. I just wanted to throw out again that I think when you've got your quarterback returning and Bielema is your coach and you were 10-3 last year, I don't know, you usually probably get a little bit better if you've still got the same quarterback. And I think that's why those guys got a shot. I mean, and they got a shot at Michigan. They got a shot at Ohio State. They've certainly got a quarterback down there who's got more experience than either of the guys at Ohio State, that's for sure, and Michigan. So, you know, it's not all about the quarterback, but sometimes it's kind of close to all about the quarterback. Big 12, Iowa State, they already played a game, they won. And in the ACC, Jon, Miami. They're playing Notre Dame. I love the fact that they're actually playing a real football game. They're playing against each other, and that's going to be a huge one. But Carson Beck is now the quarterback down at Miami. You know, he got paid something for $6 million, whatever the hell he got, Jon. I mean, it's just amazing what they're doing. But those are some of the names of the schools. Is there anybody who did I miss, or who do you think is out there? Because, you know, we all have Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. You know, you kind of go through, and then you're kind of filled up, right? It's just the way it is. I think some of those schools might be missing the playoff, quite frankly. We'll have to see.
Well, the number one dark horse for me, Pete, is Miami, and it is because of Carson Beck, but it's also because of what they did to Florida last year. I mean, these Miami kids have that same chip on their shoulder, Pete, that the kids had, you know, in the 80s and in the 90s. And then they kind of fell out a little bit. But I think Miami's back. And with a quarterback like this and the sort of receivers that Miami always recruits, I think this could be pretty interesting. And you're also right about Iowa State, because they traveled to Dublin, Ireland last week. Obviously, a lot of distractions for both them and for Kansas State, but they came out on top. And the coach showed you a lot when, like you and I said Monday, he went for it to keep the ball away from Kansas State, because Kansas State's like, go ahead, go for the field goal, because if you make it, we're still possibly beating you because that's only giving you a 6-point lead, and we're going to, you know, run down the field. But instead, he went for it, got the first down, ran out the clock, took 3 knees, and just like Travis Kelce, Pete.
It's a great. I'll tell you
3
what.
knees, Travis.
He's a great a coach, Matt Campbell, and I was lucky enough to do a game before he went to the big time. He was at Toledo, and I'm watching the guy, Jon, just going, who is this guy? This guy's really good. And why is he not already at the next level? Well, he went to the next level at Iowa State, and he's built a pretty good power down there. They're a ranked team year after year now. I'll tell you what, pretty interesting. And Big 12 has better football than they get credit for, in my opinion. That's
Pete, you know, Brock Purdy went to Iowa State.
Of course, yeah.
Just saying.
By the way, we got a comparison for Purdy, sort of. My Golden Gopher quarterback who just went to the Vikings, well, he made the 53-man roster, Jon, and he's right now one of the backups. I think he's, you know, QB3. He might slide up to QB2, but really fun to see what he was able to do during camp. And he showed off his arm, and he's kind of a Purdy type guy, right? I mean, he's late to free agency type thing, and he made the football team. So we'll see how it goes. All right, I got this one for you, Jon. In the NFL, who is the team that you look at as the biggest turnaround team in the NFL this year? And I made my decision in about that fast. And there are more than one, but this is the one I decided to go. The Tennessee Titans. And here's why. They got a new coach. They've got the number 1 pick in the entire draft, Cam Ward at quarterback, who, by the way, I know he's a rookie, and everybody's like, well, you know, how good can he be, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'll tell you what, Jon, the kid's a great athlete. He's got a great arm. He's very intelligent. He does everything he does it to perfection, it seems like. And oh, by the way, last year, John, number 2 in defense in yards per game. They gave up about 300. Number 2 in passing. So if these guys on the defensive side can give him an opportunity, this is a 3-14 team. Sounds a little bit like the Washington Commanders last year, huh? They got the right quarterback. They got the right receivers. By the way, he's got great receivers down there. But I really think that Tennessee could be that team. I think they could be the Washington of this year. So I'm looking for them to actually get into the playoffs maybe. And maybe they make a deep run, kind of the way Washington did. People might forget this, but Washington was a game away from the freaking Super Bowl, for crying out loud. So that's the way I picture Tennessee as right now. But there's others out there too. What do you think?
Well, after a spectacular rookie year, I'm thinking maybe Houston, Pete, because their quarterback, of course, did have that spectacular year as a rookie. And then the next year, sort of so-so. He had some good games, but they weren't stopping people like they have to. And as you always say, you can score points, great. You got to be able to stop the other guys from scoring. And that's why I like your pick with Tennessee, because they can stop guys. Mm-hmm. And under the new coach and so forth, it always kind of lights a fire under a little bit of everybody, because it's a new coach. So you've got to prove yourself all over again. It's not like you got to make the team, but it's like that guy wants to see that you really have the desire to be out there. And I think that'll be big for Tennessee this year. But again, Houston, I'm very much like their odds, their chances, Pete. And unlike a 3-14 team, they're a team that was like 50-50 that's about to perhaps go to that next level. And let's keep an eye on them.
I like it. I think that's a great pick too. I mean, when you've got a quarterback that good and a coach, I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for what he's been able to accomplish, John. He came from the Niners, came over there, and all he's done is convert this team into a very competitive team, and, a rookie year, phenomenal team. And I think they can get right back to that. Sometimes you get the sophomore slump. It's kind of what they got last year. I like Houston a lot. I agree with you.
Cool. Well, remember, folks, you can still join us with that virtual pass. If you sign up for that virtual pass, you can be watching everything that goes on stage with Grant Cardone, with Pete Najarian, with Ryan Mastro, with Mark Lepresti, with me, with all of the speakers that we're going to have on stage. You can't be there in person, but it'll feel like it with a virtual pass, and you get that $200 off. So scan the QR code, join us September 19th and 20th, and Pete and I will be back tomorrow with the final Rebels Edge of the week. At what time exactly, Pete?
1 p.m. Eastern, John. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.